Okay, guys, now you're doing this on purpose. That's just the old monk.
Yeah, unfortunately they may have created strong AI, but all they've actually really done is they've just made brains, and they have all the same problems that brains have. Like that whole persistent personality thing, the whole continuity of consciousness. You know, the probably hardest open problem in neuroscience currently, I think. Kind of a deal. Anyway, I told you we'd be fighting these things eventually. These are crystallids. They come in 4 elemental varieties. They have sky-high defense, but they fold instantly when shot with the opposite element to the thing that they are. Mostly their function isn't so much to directly be a threat to you as to just make sure that you're paying attention. And they're there to make it a really bad idea to focus exclusively on something that isn't them. That said, it is going to be a little while before we start seeing them actually show up frequently with other enemies. The game still technically has to teach us about them. Anyway, this room is called Careful Transport, which is a great name for a room. Especially a room with bombs in it. The conceit here is that we need to escort the blob bomb the whole way through the room and then use it to blow up a rock. Unfortunately, there's a lot of things in the middle that we need to shoot with fire. So, careful transport. It's not that difficult, it's just a tiny bit nerve-wracking. A lot of the puzzles here they kind of have this energy, where they appear tremendously complicated. They strike a balance of being solved with your heart and solved with your brain. Also, snipers. This is a fun set piece.
I cannot believe that they trapped us in the final boss of Fire Emblem Fates Conquest. This is fucked up.
Man, I thought we could get away from that just once. Ah well, it's not to be.
Fucking Takumi, god damn it.
I like how they actually have little ghillie cloaks and everything. Anyway, the snipers aren't, like, they're not that dangerous, they're mostly just annoying. The whole thing is there to function as a puzzle. Just make sure you can navigate the blob into the receptacle while dodging the sniper fire, and maybe doing a little bit of light puzzling while you're at it. Here's 4 magnums at a time. It is absolutely not necessary to use big techs to kill them. They are actually very weak, they die really quickly, but you know, it's just a matter of actually doing any damage to them.
Yeah, so the problem isn't killing them, the problem is hitting them in the first place.
There are some technicalities at work when you fight these things. Mostly it's it's not that difficult to muddle your way through and just whittle them down, but if you're trying to fight these things well, you've got to be constantly on the lookout, and you've got to be multitasking, both the going after the one that's vulnerable and dodging the fire of the ones that are still actually out there. There are also a couple of neat ways of dodging their fire, some of which I'm even going to try and show off a little bit. The only real problem is that it's not really consistent. Technically you can jump over the fire when they shoot, you can just jump over the bullet. But it seems to sometimes not work, and I'm not really sure why. But your frequent reminder that CrossCode is actually a 3D video game, technically.
You know, in retrospect, actually, that in that last set piece, what they should have done is they should have had the snipers attempting to knock you off into the abyss. Now that would be...
It can happen.
It didn't seem like there was there was an open side, which I'm just saying. Now that would have been an original set piece design.
The thing is that there's not really much for them, like, they shoot at you, they're only ever going to shoot at you, their shots don't bounce, so the only way to do that would be to have, is for some reason for you to be travelling parallel to where they're set up, or perpendicular to the line of fire. Which would be kind of weird as a proposition to set up.
Well, I mean, they also could have made the platform much thinner as well, and made it a threat that you could follow. But who would do that? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that would be an incredibly spiteful game design. I'm not even certain it would be the fun kind of spite. Anyway, something I think that I've demonstrated in this room is that the damage that these guys do, even when they're not doing their combos, is no joke. And something that I think I've pretty successfully reminded ourselves of is that Guard Sphere is really, really unbelievably useful. Like, it is one of literally the first techs that you can get, and it remains a stalwart the whole way throughout the game, if you remember that guard arts exist, which not everybody does. Ah well. Did you think we were getting through peak CrossCode without one ice block sliding puzzle?
Frankly, I'm surprised they stopped at one.
The thing is, they've got enough time to bring back more or less every greatest hit once. They keep the build-up going, they have the pacing working, but ultimately they still need to make something, like, paced and relatively compact out of all this. This really is, what this is the variety show. One of the things, add it to the list, that I absolutely love about Kulero Temple in particular is how they managed to combine both the, like, enormous variety of gimmicks and stuff on offer with the maintenance of a, like, actual decent, consistently paced dungeon that gradually builds and builds the complexity and introduces more and more stuff. This room is a tiny bit of a fucker. What we're actually setting up here is a timed ice block sliding scenario. And yes, by the way, the blocks absolutely can push the blob if you let them. If you push it into a wall, it will respawn it. It takes a little bit of brain work to figure out what they actually want you to do here, but it flows together nicely. This little bit exists to give you a buffer to act as a timer, and then they need you to move the block from plugging one hole to plugging the other hole. And the room is very meticulously constructed such that you cannot just have both blocks sitting on a hole. And then we ride right back up to the first floor again. Something else that Kulero Temple does that I love is it brings back the interconnectedness of dungeons. It's the first time we've really seen this kind of thing since, like, literally Temple Mine, where we have these areas that you just revisit repeatedly as you play through a dungeon. Something that just kind of unwraps and unties itself, like, you know, say it with me, like Zelda dungeons did. We've kind of been missing that for most of the game, you know? We had this whole thing talking about it in Temple Mine, and then it just kind of stopped doing it. And I was really sad about that.
To be fair, that is largely because the game, after Temple Mine, pretty much all of the dungeons have been a pretty straightforward ride, all things considered.
Right. I'm not really sure what the driving force behind that was, but they did wind up making them a lot more linear. Also, we absolutely could, like, branch off and start grabbing some chests here, but I know in every other dungeon in this LP, I've managed to go and basically do 100% runs, almost 100% runs, getting most of the chests and still beating Emily. But that's not happening today, sorry. The timing is too tight, and I am not playing this whole thing for a 5th time. Much as I love it, there are limits. So regrettably, on this occasion, we will be saving the chest cleanup for the post-dungeon sequence. Anyway, outside just now, we had pretty much our first instance of fighting some ordinary enemies and some crystallids, and now we have a little sequence where we fight a bunch of crystallids at once. This is to make sure that you've learned how to pay attention to what these things are doing and manage your multi-elements. CrossCode has thrown a lot of stuff at us, but canonically anyway, at least Cross-Worlds canonically, has yet to make us manage all the elements at once. This room is a mindfuck. The gimmick in this room is that we need to repeatedly send shock balls along the same path, with them acting as a stagger essentially, to get the timers to work. It's just that actually unraveling this into something that your brain can work with is a little bit dicey. But when you lay it all out, yep, it does flow together. Note how tight the timing was on that last shield, by the way. You really do have to figure this room out. Anyway, I'm sure it will astonish you to learn that there's another Elemental Guardian coming up. But they are real insistent on making sure that we demonstrate that we understand how to move these blobs around, because we're gonna have to do it during the fight. And it would really suck if you just forgot about this. Alright, here's Wave Shield Guy. His shield teleports. That means not only does it attack twice, it means it also comes back from a different place than where he threw it. And he does this whole splash thing that Wave is kind of typical for. It does mean that there's a very obvious tech to hit him with when he gets vulnerable, but that's just something you're going to have to find out. By the way, while the shock blob is travelling towards you, you can move, and it will curve. This is tremendously helpful.
Yeah, this looks like this would be a nightmare if you didn't know that.
One of my favourite things to do fighting these guys is, like, not only to go for the counterattacks on their shield moves, but also to specifically to counterattack by in some way going through the shield. A lot of dash arts give you some pretty generous iframes. So if you know what you're doing, you can get some pretty stylish text on these guys. This is an odd room. It's not that difficult, it feels weirder than other rooms. By the way, I don't think we ever really expounded on it, but the big deal about the fire interaction with the blob is not simply that it makes it move a long way, but also specifically that it makes the blob bounce. If you hit it with neutral or ice, it kind of just impacts obstacles and just kind of sputters out. Which sometimes is exactly what you want. But if you hit it with fire, it will bounce exactly like your shots will. Also, this is kind of a mess of a shot, but wasn't clean, but it was clean enough. I'm not sure if I missed some kind of incredibly convenient ricochet to finish that room, but yeah, what are you gonna do?
These two are an interesting pair.
You know, it's funny you should say that. Emily, I am literally begging you to chill. And by I mean both me and my, mostly, clone. Seriously though.
Yeah, that's
Emily's...
That's a little yikes there.
Emily can be a tiny bit intense when she forgets. Ah well. A theme that you may have noticed in Kolero Temple is because we have so many areas that are basically just split in half and separated by an excuse to have you return to one of the overworlds and have some dialogue. That each of these is paced like you could have done either of them first, so it's not like there's the one path and the second path. It's that we've had the fire path and now we have the ice path, and each path is paired with other elements as well. They do vary up the elemental pairings as you work through the rooms, but there's usually a core in each section. Plus, of course, both sections take you through one of these bridges, have you fight some crystallids, have you fight some barrel towers, and have one of these sequences where you walk the whole way to the end of somewhere and then you go and get a blob and you escort it back. It's not just game design, it's all very dungeon design. Is the variant I think we're going to have to break out to describe what's going on here. And I mean, I'm digging it. I'm just saying, it's kind of conspicuously designed. And I'm pretty sure that's still overall a good thing. Honestly, I'm not altogether sure what the takeaway is. I just know that I can't stop thinking about it. Anyway, previously you wondered whether or not adding more elements would make this fight easier. And I say, okay, but what if we add a third pillar?
I mean, that's not really what I was getting at.
I know.
Although I'm not surprised that's ultimately how it how it got to that.
They do like to put a twist on things. Something I'm actually not sure about is whether you can get a 3-way combo with them.
You probably could if you tried hard enough.
I mean, you definitely can, I'm just not sure if it does anything other than, like, have all 3 of them start attacking you. Like, there's specifically one deal with having 3 piles, is that if you combo one of them, or at least if you combo 2 of them, you can still keep fighting the 3rd. Anyway, once again, we're bringing back a greatest hit. One of the platform escort rooms from Temple Mine. Except now we're using all 4 elements. And we have a lot of ways to go about this. You can, like, make a show of bouncing the blob along organically to get it from each step to the next, but you're probably just going to want to pull it along with Thunder. Let's be honest. Sometimes you can forget how some of these things work. Like, there's a lot to do here. And it's what I'm getting at is that there are a surprising number of ways to mess this room up. Like, I know that's on the one hand that's kind of obvious, but on the other there are even more than it seems like sometimes. It's entirely possible that that particular room might take a couple tries. And as before, snipers. But yeah, you're right, there's no... I mean, technically there is an abyss, but there's barriers all around, so we can't actually be pushed into it. But I'm not convinced that there would be a point to that. It's still just damage. The sniping is primarily there to impede us, as we try and solve a puzzle.
Yeah, I know.
I guess there's this bit is an abyss, and I guess there is exactly one point on this bridge in which you stand between the snipers and the abyss. So there's that, I guess? But yeah. Also, this last bit, the window on that in order to not get shot is deceptively small. You gotta watch out for it. These guys do not let up. Anyway, watch during this fight as I repeatedly try and jump over sniper shots using Sphere Storm. I forget exactly which lot of footage we have going on here, but in my various attempts I have seen this succeed and fail in a lot of different combinations. And I'm not fully sure whether it's supposed to be possible to do this or not. Like there, I mean that kind of looked like it should have worked, right? But you might have noticed I definitely took a hit there. But I've also managed to pull that off at least once. I think there are some other techs that make you jump even higher. Like Vermilion Echo is absolutely overkill to take down these guys, but it does make you jump pretty high up. Here's another fun room.
Say, what kind of fresh hell have they cooked up here?
Well, we've got bubbles, and we've got wave, and we've got height manipulating pillars. I would like to reassure everybody at this point that despite the fact that the blobs can in fact teleport at a vertical incline, there is never going to be a point at which we are called upon to reason vertically on any level other than like simply getting the thing between elevations. Like there's never going to be a time where we have to hit something that's on elevation 1 by teleporting from elevation 0 to elevation 2. There absolutely could have been, but there isn't. Because every now and then, the stars align, and the developers of CrossCode exercise restraint. Also, I absolutely forgot to tilt these up. I absolutely forgot to tilt these beforehand. Whoops. So I get to do this whole room again, but the good news is that means I get to show off, like, how learnable these things are. Like, it seems like it shouldn't be possible to commit any extent of this to memory. And yet, when these things are all put together, they flow so well. I have no idea how they did it. It's just, I go to do this and it just works.
It is impressive how much of it comes together.
Like, the amount of managing possibilities that they have to do with these things is kind of nuts.
I assume that... Yeah, okay, there it is.
Yes. Surprisingly little to say about it. But, I mean, he's not wrong. It just means you have to teleport to the bridge again. It's not very much ground to make up. One of the neat little things about this game is that, despite its puzzle RPG sensibilities, moving around is actually extremely snappy. You won't even lose an entire minute if you make that mistake. Anyway, I don't like the airbots. I try not to suffer them to live any longer than I absolutely have to. There are a couple more fun ways of dealing with them, but mostly they're good for showing off. But absolutely nothing on Earth is more utilitarian than just spending 2 seconds shooting him in the face to build up SP, and then breaking out Scarlet Rain. Because Scarlet Rain goes through armor. Alright. Remember when we stacked up teleporting blocks? We're bringing that back as well. This is another one of those rooms that's kind of like... It can take a little while to figure out what you're actually trying to accomplish here. I mean, obviously you've got there's the receptacle over to... Well, right now it's in the screen lower left. And we've got to get the blob over there somehow. But beyond that, this is one of those rooms, I don't know about anybody else, I imagine everybody has a different room that's like this for them, but for me it was this room. I just looked at it and I was like, hang on, what do I do? Where do I start? How brain puzzle make work? And eventually, it does all come together. There are a lot of little implicit hints set up, and it's not just floor markings either, although there is this half of the room in particular, the floor markings are basically there to give you a giant hint of what to do with those pillars. But for the most part, the hints here are actually implicit. Like the teleporters are positioned such that simply by getting the boxes onto the teleport points, you've got them in the right place. It's just that when your overthinking brain kicks in, and you start thinking like, hang on, so I've stacked these things up, now where do I put them? Let me try putting them somewhere. And then you're in trouble. You'll see that I have moved the left-hand set of boxes away from its designated position, and thus I have imperiled myself.
Okay, yeah, I see.
Because I was going by eye, I was like, okay, so we've got to go diagonally down from that pillar, but that's thinking with our 2D brain and not our 3D brain. So we actually just have to leave it where the teleporter put it, also on the giant ostentatious floor diamond. See what I mean? It's equal parts solving with your heart and solving with your brain. Also, it's real annoying to actually position the blob for this shot.
I gotta say though, the dangerous part of mixing solve with your heart and solve with your brain, like as a puzzle dynamic, is that the two are kind of fundamentally incompatible when it comes to actual puzzle design, and it's real easy to fuck it up.
Oh yeah. This is some explosive chemistry they've got going on, and it works. It gets results. It produces what some scientists will euphemistically refer to as a dynamic result. But it can go wrong, and it can leave you missing a limb or two. Is this still a metaphor? I don't think game design accidents are that bad. In any case, I think, shockingly, you will find that I think that CrossCode manages to get this balance about right. It gets it to work. And this is still fundamentally a puzzle game, and this is the grand culmination of everything that this puzzle game has thrown at us. It's kind of expected that it should produce these motherfucker great productions on which people get stuck. That's kind of like it's like with the big scary neutral laser attack from the mid-boss. It's like, okay, yeah, it's real serious, but also we're in the big leagues now. This room is called Red Herring, and it took me a couple of my practice runs and a couple of editing sessions to actually figure out why this room has that name. For the most part, what we're doing here is we need to get stuff from inside this, I mean, I was going to call it a maze, but that's not really right. It's not really a maze, is it? But you know what I mean. This structure in the middle has stuff in it, and we need to get the blob in there, and we need to get the stuff out. There are a couple of points where we're expected to position things with some precision. Like a lot of other times in CrossCode, this is set up such that you can get this done with a fairly minimal amount of fairly sane shots that are all at sensible 45-degree angles, and just use a straightforward number of fully charged shots and no nudging. In theory.
I was gonna say, that sounds an awful lot like to the setup too. You could do that, but I didn't.
I mean, something inevitably goes wrong and you get one thing just a tiny bit off. And then you have to retry a whole bunch of things, or just you have to reset things, or you have to pull off some ridiculous trick shot in an attempt to correct it. You can I wound up essentially solving this room in 2 passes, but it's intended to be possible to just flow straight from one half of it to the other. Anyway, the red herring in this room is the middle of those 3 blocks that we rotated, because the solution does not involve it at all. Also, this is incredibly irritating to position. Like, just getting the blob in the right place there is... I feel like there has to be an easier way of doing it, but even after all this time, like, looking and thinking about this room, I still have no idea what's intended to be the neat, elegant, minimal solution to get that blob into that place.
Also, I gotta say, I'm not sure why it was called red herring. I didn't see any, like, obvious, like, trap points.
It was that one block that's just not involved in the solution. That was it. At least I think that was it. If you try and I mean, I'm not sure if it's even possible to actually involve that, to even hit the ball into that block. But I do know that if you ever did, there wouldn't be any way that it would ever actually lead to the solution, so... I think maybe they just wanted to have one room that wasn't like, okay, here's an element, let's just look at it and immediately perceive the correct orientation. That seems like it would be nice. Anyway, Thunder Guardian. As you can imagine, a lot of this stuff involves hitboxes appearing at weird, unpredictable times. Also, this is by far the hardest of the blob phases to actually nail. Because the nature of this is that there are only really so many ways that you can actually hit him. And it's true that you can put the blob wherever you want for its start point, and it will always move from your chosen start point to the designated end point, but that's a lot of brain power to figure that out. Mostly you're just going to be working the corners every time, which means that you need the Guardian to be exactly in the middle of the room. So you've got to get him in position, and then you've got to get yourself in position to actually make the shot that hits the ball into the thing. It's a whole proposition. It's a time is what I'm getting at. This here is, like, it's not really a huge mind-bending puzzle. I just feel like there's a lot of steps in this one. And maybe not in a good way? Like, it's not even that many. I don't know what it is that bugs me so much about this particular room. Maybe it's the fact that literally every time I wind up focusing on the wrong part of it.
Can you throw through those little pillar things, or does it have to be...
Your shots go through it.
Okay.
Anyway, this winds up being another one of those times when, yeah, you gotta position the thing such that it's not right up against the wall, otherwise it makes the shot very fiddly when you do it. It's the one part of this that I think almost doesn't work. Anyway, am I enjoying this dungeon? Am I enjoying this dungeon? Citron, I'm having the time of my goddamn life right now. But, I guess I can sympathize.
Can't believe Trani's gonna have his big realization when he's in the middle of the final boss fight.
Just asking for trouble, really. Alright. One more floor to go. Kind of.